Ali Carter. Girl, the moment that name started floating around again, people online just lost it. Like, you know how sometimes one story drops and suddenly everybody starts connecting dots that weren't even there before? That's exactly the vibe right now. And I'm telling you, the way this whole thing is being talked about, it feels less like facts and more like one of those wild group chats where everyone's adding something crazier than the last person. So here's what's been going around. Ali Carter has been telling these really intense stories about her past, saying she went through some extremely disturbing situations when she was younger. According to her, she was moved through different places, even claiming there were underground tunnels connecting major locations. Now, listen, that part alone is already where people start side-eyeing everything because there's zero verified proof of anything like that actually existing on the scale she's describing. But the internet? Oh, they don't care. They grabbed onto it and ran. And then suddenly, names start getting dropped. Big names, like we're talking about people like Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and a bunch of celebrities. And that's when things get messy. Because once you start throwing names like that into a story without actual evidence, it stops being a conversation and starts turning into straight up speculation. Now here's where it really blew up. People started linking Ali Carter's claims with everything surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, and you already know how sensitive that topic is. There are real documented crimes tied to Epstein, and there are real victims, which makes it even more dangerous when random claims start getting mixed into that narrative without proof. Then, suddenly, Katt Williams gets dragged into the conversation. Not because he directly confirmed anything, but because people started saying his past interviews line up with what Ali is saying. And you know how the internet works. If two things sound even slightly similar, they'll act like it's a full confirmation. One girl in the group chat would be like, "See? Katt been telling us." And another one goes, "But did he actually say that though?" And then the loud one, the one leading the whole conversation, is like, "No, but it all connects if you really think about it." That's literally what this feels like. And then the names get even crazier. People online started throwing around celebrities like Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Denzel Washington, Steve Harvey, Megan Fox. Basically anyone famous gets pulled into it at some point. And I'm going to be real with you, that's where you have to pause. Because there's a huge difference between verified information and viral storytelling. Just because something sounds dramatic doesn't make it true. And right now, most of what's being said is coming from clips, reposts, and people interpreting things however they want. Now, Ali also talks about having proof, documents, statements, all of that. But here's the thing. None of that has been publicly verified by any credible authority. No confirmed investigation has backed these specific claims the way they're being shared online. But the way it's spreading, you'd think it's already proven fact. And that's the scary part. Because people aren't just discussing it anymore. They're believing it, adding their own theories, building full narratives. It turns into this cycle where someone says something shocking, another person reacts emotionally, and suddenly it feels real even when there's no solid evidence behind it. And then you've got clips resurfacing, like old interviews, random statements, even things taken out of context, all being used to support these claims. Like with Katt Williams, people are now rewatching everything he's ever said, trying to match it with this story, like they're solving some giant mystery. But really, it's just people trying to make sense of something that hasn't actually been confirmed. And I feel like the loudest voice in that group, the one leading the gossip, would lean in and say, "Look, I'm not saying it's all true, but why does it all feel connected?" And someone else would immediately go, "Or maybe it just sounds connected because everyone keeps repeating it." That's where we are right now. A mix of real issues, unverified claims, big celebrity names, and a whole lot of online amplification. And once those ingredients come together, it becomes less about truth and more about how wild the story can get. And trust me, it gets even crazier from here. And the thing is, the deeper you go into this, the more intense the stories start sounding. Like, Ally Carter doesn't just stop at saying she went through something traumatic. She goes into very detailed, very disturbing descriptions about what she claims happened. And that's exactly why the reactions online are so split. You've got one side saying, there's no way someone would make all this up. And the other side going, but where is the proof? Because she talks about being held in these controlled environments, saying there were other kids, some of them sick, some of them not even able to speak the same language. She describes situations where people were scared to even move, like nobody knew what was going on or what they were supposed to do. And I'm telling you, when people hear stuff like that, it hits emotionally first before anything else. But then again, emotional doesn't always mean factual. And that's where things start getting complicated. Because then Ally takes it even further and starts talking about alleged rituals, control, and things that sound straight out of a movie. She claims people were restrained, controlled, and used in ways that are honestly too graphic and disturbing to even process casually. And when those kinds of claims come out, people either fully believe it or completely reject it. There's no middle ground. One girl in the group would be like, this is why I don't trust any of these celebrities. Another one would instantly go, but you can't just accuse people like that without evidence. And then the leader, the one who's deep into it, would lean forward like, but what if this is exactly why no one speaks out? See how that works? It becomes less about what's proven and more about what feels possible. Then there's this whole angle where Ally says she was targeted because of who she is, even claiming connections to major figures like Tupac Shakur. And that's another moment where people stop and go, wait, what? Because now it's not just about her story, it's about tying it into already legendary names, which makes everything sound even bigger, even more dramatic. And again, no verified evidence backing that specific claim, but online, that doesn't slow anything down. If anything, it speeds it up. Because now people are saying, oh, so that's why they silenced her. And suddenly it turns into this entire narrative about power, control, and people being shut down before they can speak. And then comes the part where she talks about her life being in danger, saying she was threatened, that her home situation got exposed, that people were coming after her. And honestly, situations like that can happen online. People do get doxxed, harassed, all of that. But again, tying it directly to these massive claims, that's where it becomes hard to separate what's real from what's being assumed. And while all this is happening, the internet is doing what it does best, picking sides. Some people are defending her like she's risking everything to tell the truth. Others are like, this doesn't add up at all. And then there's a third group just watching the chaos like it's entertainment. And let's not ignore this part once big celebrity names get attached to something like this. Even without proof, it spreads 10 times faster. Because people are already curious about figures like Sean Diddy Combs, especially with all the recent controversies around him. So when his name gets thrown into a story like this, it instantly gains traction. It's like fuel to the fire. And then people start connecting everything. Old photos, random clips, interviews, anything they can find suddenly becomes evidence in their minds. Even if it has nothing to do with the actual claims. That's how narratives get built online. Not always from facts, but from patterns people think they're seeing. And honestly, the most interesting part of all this isn't even the claims themselves, it's how quickly people decide what to believe. Like within minutes, someone has already made up their mind. Either this is all real or this is completely fake. No pause, no proper verification, just instant judgment. And the leader of that imaginary group chat, she'd probably look around and say, y'all don't find it weird how every time someone speaks out, they get labeled crazy? And someone else would immediately respond, or maybe people say that because the story actually sounds crazy. That tension right there, that's exactly where this whole situation sits. Right in between belief and doubt. And just when you think it can't get any more intense, the conversation shifts again, and suddenly even more layers start getting added. And just when you think the story has already gone as far as it can, that's when the conversation takes another turn. and everything gets even more layered. Because now people aren't just talking about Ali Carter anymore. They're pulling in clips, interviews, and random moments from other celebrities and trying to connect all of it into one big narrative. Like suddenly an old comment, a weird interview, or even someone's silence becomes proof of something bigger. And that's exactly what happened with Katt Williams again. People started going back to his interviews, especially the one where he talked about the industry trying to control people or push them into certain images. And now, in this context, folks are saying, see, he was warning us the whole time. But here's the thing, those statements were always general. He never confirmed any of these specific claims. It's just that now, with everything going viral, people are reinterpreting what he said to fit the current narrative. And that's where things get dangerous. Because then you've got people dragging in completely separate topics, like discussions around Jeffrey Epstein again, and even unrelated scientific conversations, and somehow tying them all together like it's one giant hidden system. And once that happens, it becomes almost impossible to separate facts from imagination. One girl in the group chat would be like, this is all connected, I'm telling you. Another one would roll her eyes and go, or maybe you're just connecting things that aren't even related. And the leader would just sit there like, no, there's something deeper here. And that's the exact energy online right now. Then more names get thrown into the mix again, without verified evidence. People start talking about Jay-Z and Beyoncé, even bringing up old clips from artists like M.I, where she talked about her experiences in the industry. And suddenly, everything is being interpreted through this same lens. Like, every story is secretly part of one bigger truth. But again, interpretation is not confirmation. And that's the line a lot of people are crossing without even realizing it. Because the moment you start assuming that every unrelated piece of information is connected, you stop analyzing, you start believing. And once that happens, it's very hard to pull back and question anything. And then there's the part where people start analyzing behavior. Like someone avoiding someone at an event, or not posting on social media, or acting differently in public, all of that suddenly becomes suspicious. Take Denzel Washington, for example. People are now looking at clips of him and trying to read into his actions like they mean something deeper, but in reality, those are just moments taken out of context and placed into a completely different narrative. And once again, no confirmed evidence tying him to any of these claims. But the story keeps growing anyway. And that's the thing about situations like this. They don't need proof to spread. They just need attention. The more shocking it sounds, the faster it moves. The more names involved, the more people talk about it. And before you know it, it's everywhere. Now, the leader of that group would probably lean back and say, look, I'm not saying everything she said is true, but I'm also not saying she's lying. And honestly, that's probably the most realistic position to have right now, because here's the truth. There are real issues in the world. There are real cases of abuse, trafficking, and powerful people doing horrible things. Those are documented, proven, and serious. But at the same time, not every viral story automatically falls into that category. And mixing unverified claims with real tragedies can actually do more harm than good. It can distract from real victims, create confusion, and turn serious topics into entertainment. And that's what this is starting to feel like. Less like a search for truth and more like a story that keeps evolving the more people talk about it. So at the end of the day, you've got two sides. One side saying she's exposing everything and people just don't want to accept it. The other side saying there's no solid proof and this is getting out of control. And the smartest move, probably to stay right in the middle. Watch, listen, question everything, but don't jump to conclusions just because something sounds intense. Because in a situation like this, the loudest story isn't always the most accurate one.